Good evening and welcome to this Advective weather update. We have an active tropical setup around the world at the moment with three significant systems ongoing. The strongest by far is Major Typhoon Saola, which as you can see is just off the coast of the island of Luzon in the Philippines at this time. It is stalling off the coast with winds of 130 miles an hour 1 minute sustained, making it a major typhoon or category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Pressure 942 millibars. It is moving slowly to the south-southwest, paralleling the coast, and it should gradually turn to the east away from the coast before moving to the north and then turning back to the west, so completing a full loop over the next couple of days. Unfortunately, while moving away from the Philippines and impacts gradually dying away there over the next couple of days, it is likely to become a super typhoon on approach to Taiwan, where it could make a catastrophic landfall in a few days' time. Now, given the very slow motion at the moment, and the fact that it's a long way out, this storm could go a variety of different places. It could manage to move south of Taiwan, missing the island entirely, only bringing tropical storm or maybe typhoon winds. It could strike somewhere across the island, bringing very, very heavy rainfall and obviously severe to super typhoon winds wherever it makes landfall. There is the small possibility that it could move north of Taiwan entirely, which would bring similar impacts but to the northern part of the island as missing to the south. If it misses Taiwan to the north or south, it will move into China as a more formidable system, but regardless, parts of China should be seeing a typhoon landfall from this system after it moves past the island of Taiwan. Now, this is going to be a significant system. People in the Philippines have been experiencing the worst of its impacts for a few hours now. If you're right in those coastal regions, hopefully everyone there followed the warnings from Pagasa and moved to a safe location. The storm isn't going to make landfall in the Philippines. It isn't going to get any closer than it currently is, by more than a few miles at least, and then it should move away in the next 6 hours or so. Taiwan should be preparing the whole island for a significant impact. This could be one of the strongest typhoons to strike the island this century. There have been a few, but unfortunately it could put its name up there with them at a similar sort of intensity, and that means widespread mudslides, flash floods, roads washed out, probably more impacts from the flooding than from anything else, despite the fact that it will be a super typhoon potentially at landfall. So start making preparations now, follow all guidance from local authorities, and they will issue the necessary warnings as this storm moves closer to the island. But please pay attention, this is a significant and life-threatening situation that will be happening in the next few days on Taiwan, and after that, somewhere along the coast of China. Now, the next strongest system ongoing around the world is Hurricane Franklin, which has been ongoing for some time across parts of the south-central Atlantic. It's now strengthened into a hurricane to the northeast of the Turks and Caicos Islands, and is moving generally northwest as it strengthens at a fairly reasonable rate. The pressure's been going down throughout the aircraft reconnaissance missions this afternoon, and it could become a major hurricane any time tomorrow, really, but it's currently forecast to do that in the evening hours into early Monday morning. As you can see, currently with winds at 85 miles an hour, and the latest pressure is 976 millibars, moving to the north-northwest at 8 miles an hour. Franklin will quickly strengthen, as I mentioned, over the next couple of days, making its closest approach to Bermuda on Wednesday. Now, while it may be going out to sea and Bermuda may be outside the cone of uncertainty, as you can see from the probability of experiencing tropical storm force winds, 50-50 chance that Bermuda experiences tropical storm force winds at this time, and it wouldn't take that much, perhaps a storm being a bit larger than expected or the storm moving a bit east than expected, to get gusts that are strong enough to cause damage to trees and such. However, Bermuda is a very well-built island. Many of the structures there are capable of withstanding a major hurricane impact with minimal damage, and the greatest threat from this hurricane is likely going to be ripped tides and ripped currents along the entire coast of the United States, Atlantic Canada, and of course the Caribbean and Southwest Atlantic islands. and indeed Bermuda as well. So everywhere on the Atlantic coast should be aware of the threat of ripped currents over the next several days due to Hurricane Franklin. In fact, it may continue throughout next week. But Bermuda, just be aware you could be having some tropical storm force winds on Wednesday. Now, finally, the weakest system for now is Tropical Depression 10, which was recently designated east of Cancun, Mexico. It's stalling over the Yucatan Channel, and it's been developing here for about a day so far, and it's expected to remain here for another 2 days, steadily gaining intensity over the extremely hot waters of the Northwest Caribbean Sea and the southern Gulf of Mexico. As you can see from the forecast, it's hardly going to move at all during the entirety of tomorrow, and then during Monday it should start to turn towards the north. Tropical storm warnings in effect for the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, including the island of Cozumel, and tropical storm watches in effect for western portions of Cuba. Now, we don't know how strong it's going to get while it remains in the Caribbean Sea, but it isn't impossible that it becomes a hurricane before it moves past Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, so just be aware those may be upgraded to hurricane watches and/or warnings before the storm moves away from you. Currently, the forecast is for it to not become a hurricane until it's over the central Gulf of Mexico, but that means that it could make a hurricane landfall in Florida. It'll be moving quite fast at that point, so there won't be too much of an impact from flooding rains, because there won't be enough time for the rain to build up, but there could be some significant storm surge impacting the region. As we all know, in the Gulf of Mexico, storm surge builds up very easily, and this could be quite a bit stronger than the forecast. Currently only forecast to peak as a Category 1, but some of the model guidance suggests that this could get to a major hurricane. That's the top end of the guidance at this time, and the NHC clearly isn't forecasting it, going only with a mid-range Category 1. But it's a possibility. The waters are extremely warm, record warm, as you've been hearing throughout the news for the past several months, and with an environment like that, where it will also be favourable in the atmosphere for this storm to intensify, rapid intensification can't be ruled out, and if it does decide to rapidly intensify, it's got 3.5 days before landfall. That's plenty enough time to get to major hurricane status, but that is currently the worst case scenario. We're really hoping it stays below major hurricane status and that the NHC forecast verifies. Not often you hope for a hurricane landfall, and just a hurricane landfall, but here we are. Here are the key messages. Of course, you can access this and more at hurricanes.gov. That's the National Hurricane Centre website. And of course, more information from your local authorities and local National Weather Service site. This will be a developing system. As I mentioned, it will likely be named tomorrow, and the more time we have on this and the more data we get from the surface observations and aircraft and indeed the hurricane hunters going into the storm, the better idea we will get of what it will do. This is a first forecast, a first advisory, so it's a bit rough, and it's quite uncertain how strong it will get and where exactly it will go. You can see that this could be anywhere from the western Florida panhandle to making landfall south of Tampa. And given that it's going to be stalling for the next day, that could again shift quite a distance. And so anywhere along the entire coast of Florida and even parts of Alabama, Mississippi need to be eyes open for this system as it moves north over the next few days. And that's all for us today. We'll be back tomorrow with more updates on all three of these developing situations as they move closer towards their primary impact locations. We hope you're staying safe wherever you are in the world and that you have a good weekend. Thank you and goodbye.